Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you're all ready for some seriously creepy Reddit horror stories, because today's lineup is downright chilling. From eerie encounters to unsettling mysteries, these stories might just make you question what's lurking in the dark, the ones that make you question every little sound you hear at night. So, grab a blanket, turn the lights down, and let's dive into these disturbing tales that are sure to send shivers down your spine. My wife is lurking in my childhood photos, but I met her at the age of 30, and she looks no younger in the old pictures. Sometimes it feels as if my life has been nothing but an ever revolving door of grief. I'm only 34 years old, and I've lost everyone to death, rejection, or diverging paths: my parents, my sister, my childhood friends, and countless other loved ones. I feel numb, directionless. Above all else, I feel angry. I hate the world for taking them from me. I hate life for dealing cards from a rotten deck. My mother passed last year. She'd been fighting a lengthy battle with dementia since 2019. I didn't cry when she died. I had nothing left in the tank. I'd already endured small, painful pinches of grief over the years. I grieved whenever she lost a piece of herself. I grieved for every one of us that she forgot, whilst there were still those of us left to forget. Those 4 years fragmented me. Mum and I were so close, and it broke my heart to see her very soul disintegrate. She was my only remaining family. My dad and my sister died when I was young. And slowly, everyone else vanished too. I can't explain it, but in spite of her deterioration, I think Mum held on to life for me. I worry, Brennan, my mother hazily said. You're safe, Mum, I said. You don't need to. No, I worry about Brennan, she interjected in a fluster. I'm Brennan, Mum, and I'm fine, I said, sighing. I worry, she absent-mindedly whispered. When my mother died in February 2023, I was left with one person in the entire world, Olivia. I counted my blessings to have a darling wife who would always be by my side, until I realized how terribly true that might be. Whilst I was clearing out my mother's attic, I found a box of photo albums, dust-coated antiques that I'd never seen before. Too many painful memories, perhaps, but a tinge of warmth spread through my body as I eagerly flicked through the pages. A fuzzy, forgotten feeling. I remembered being happy as a child. I was surrounded by family and friends. I lovingly tore through the pages, and I was moments away from shouting for my wife to come up to the attic. But then I noticed something bizarre. Olivia was standing in the back of a photo. It was a picture of a day at the zoo with my parents and my sister. Through metal bars, at the opposite side of the lion enclosure, I could see my wife standing there. Someone I didn't know as a child. But it was her. There was no doubt about that. Distinctive black hair, fair complexion, and petite physique. She wore a thin, knowing smile that seemed unbefitting of her, or any version of Olivia that I'd seen before. My stomach gurgled nervously, but I smiled and laughed it off. Uncanny, I whispered to myself. Obviously, it couldn't have been her, I told myself. We're the same age, and she would have been a child at the time. It's just a doppelganger. I carried on flicking through the pages, and then a lump formed at the surface of my throat. My wife appeared again. This time, it was a photo of our family's Christmas gathering in a restaurant. And outside the window, beneath the smoking shelter, a solitary figure stood and watched us. It was Olivia, or a woman who, yet again, looked identical to my 33-year-old wife. Once is nothing. Twice is a coincidence, I muttered uncertainly. I frantically tore through the photo album as sweat collected in thick, icy trails on my colorless cheeks. Olivia was in every photo, and she looked no different from the present day. The same woman. Always lurking somewhere in the background, discreetly watching, ever wearing that foul grin. My heart thumped fitfully. This was no longer an oddity, a funny peculiarity. It was unsettling enough to see evidence of a person stalking my family, but a person who hadn't aged in 33 years, it was sinister. It defied everything my logical brain knew to be true. I found myself trembling in terror and clawing at my hair. I had stopped turning pages. After seeing my wife skulking in dozens of pictures, I hadn't the stomach to continue. But I couldn't tear my eyes off the page before me. It was a photo captioned, "Yummy cake, Brennan's 10th birthday party." I was sitting in the back garden on an overcast day, A decadent chocolate cake sat on my lap. My jubilant friends and family surrounded me. I was midway through, blowing out 10 candles, and the flames leaned away from my pursed lips. There she was again, hiding in a photo from the year 2000. Olivia would have been 10 years old, just like me. And yet, the camera told another tale. This time, my fully grown wife cowered behind the short fence at the rear of our property. But the top of her head peered into our garden, and I could distinguish her distinctive black hair. Her eyes were bloodshot and thirsty. She was, perhaps most hauntingly, eyeing the camera. It felt as if she could see me in the attic. "You're losing your mind, Brennan," I thought, eyes still unable to look away. "This isn't real. It's all in your—" A sudden wisp of wind extinguished the attic light. My body shivered uncontrollably, and I found myself wrestling with an undeniable thought. It sounded like lips blowing air. Trying to steady my breathing, I anxiously patted the floor of the blackened attic. I wish I wouldn't leave my phone in stupid places, I thought. I wanted to leave, but I didn't trust myself to maneuver through my mother's cluttered attic in the dark. And then my fingers brushed over a familiar, smooth surface. Gotcha, I thought, before picking up my phone and turning on the flashlight. I screamed. The birthday photo had changed. The candles on my cake were gone, and I was sitting all alone. No family, no friends, nobody, not even Olivia. I stumbled to my feet and dropped the book. The floorboards moaned as I shifted my weight backwards. I had to get far from that cursed book, that cursed attic. I twisted to run for the attic door, but I didn't move beyond that first step. My torchlight illuminated something horrifying. Poking her head through the attic opening, Olivia smiled at me. Her eyes mirrored those in the numerous photographs I'd just seen. Her pupils seemed darker, wider. Red veins painted the corners, and her eyes rippled ever so slightly, as if they were not really eyes at all. I don't know what happened to the woman I married, but that wasn't who eyed me from the attic door. She was a horror, some rabid mouse that had soundlessly slithered up the stairs and the ladder. My wife giggled, "I'll eat you from the inside out." And then the woman plummeted through the attic door, disappearing from sight. Thinking only of escaping, I lunged for the open door. But something seized my ankle, chaining me to the attic. I spun to face my shackle, and my mouth parted in wordless terror. From the open page of the photo album, Olivia's twisted arm and face had emerged. She offered a toothy grin and unhinged eyes as she attempted to pull me into the picture. Vile bile. So rich. And with our consummation, it becomes complete. I cried in agony as I was dragged to hell by the thing that I had loved for 3 years. A hellish demon I had believed to be my wife. But it seemed I truly had nobody left. Nothing but a cancerous tumor clinging to my very essence. It was draining the last of my pain, the last of my suffering. I closed my eyes and thought of my loved ones. The loved ones I was certain I would shortly see again. As the terrifying demonic limb pulled my leg into the photo album, I prepared to meet whatever fate awaited. All of that anger, the years spent in a perpetual psychological nightmare, for nothing. I visualized my mother's smiling face, and a calmness swept through my mind. "I worry about Brennan," she said. I started to fib before deciding to unburden the weight on my chest. "No, I'm not fine, Mum, but I will be." Suddenly, the hissing ceased. All sound ceased. And when I opened my eyes, my wretched wife was gone. My ankle was no longer merging with the laminated plastic, but it throbbed painfully. The bottom of my trouser leg bore claw-shaped tears, and it was stained with fresh blood. To be certain the entity had vanished, I cast my phone light onto the book, and the picture of my 10th birthday had returned to normal. I wasn't alone. I was surrounded by friends and family. Nothing could destroy that memory in my mind, but I shuddered as I turned the pages of the book. My smiling wife was still lurking in the photographs. I fled the house, and I haven't looked back. It's been a year, and I don't fear the memories anymore. I'm moving forwards. I'm learning to love again. I'm learning to open myself to new people and new memories. But I still fear loss. After all, that horrifying woman waits for me. I know she does. I fear the day that I notice her in a new photo. I played hide and seek with my son and found something terrifying. During quarantine, my 4-year-old and I played a lot of hide and seek. Well, hide and seek with a few extra rules. 1, I'm the only one that hides. He doesn't want to. 2, I have to call out, yoo-hoo, every few minutes. Otherwise, he'd never find me. And 3, when he gets close, I pop a hand or foot out of my hiding spot. And he shrieks, I see your feet, ah ha ha ha. 4-year-olds are really stupid, okay? And I didn't exactly have the money to buy him a ton of toys. We just moved into this house a few weeks ago. The rent took up nearly my entire paycheck. I got all the furniture from FreeCycle, we ate beans and rice often, and I was still driving around a 20-year-old car. Hide again, Benjamin said, tugging my hand. Hide again. But it's almost bedtime. Please? Okay, but only one game, okay? Go count in the kitchen. He ran around the corner as fast as he could. 1, 2. I ran through the living room and then I saw it. The hall closet. Perfect. I opened the door and ducked inside. It was a tight fit, all those scratchy, furry old coats pressing against me. But it was worth it. Because the better the hiding spot, the more time I got to myself. I pulled out my phone and started browsing Reddit. Soon, his muffled footsteps sounded around the dining room. I waited a minute. When he didn't seem to be coming my way, I cracked the door. Yoo-hoo! I called out. Footsteps grew louder. I heard his muffled giggles as he walked towards me, and then he started going up the stairs. What an idiot. I cracked the door open a little further, just in time to see his little feet disappear from the landing. Then I shrugged. More time for me. I sat back down in the closet and pulled out the phone. Mommy, I heard him giggle from upstairs. Mommy, where are you? I smiled. I wonder if a mom invented hide and seek. It's quite brilliant. You get a few precious minutes away from your child, and they're not even supposed to make much noise, but you're entertaining them at the same time. Absolutely Yoo-hoo! I stopped. Every muscle in my body froze, but I heard it, clear as day. A soft, clear voice calling from upstairs. But Benjamin and I were home alone. Oh God, someone's in the house, and Benjamin, I burst out of the closet. Benjamin? Where are you? I heard Benjamin's footsteps running above me, his giggles trailing down to me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Benjamin, I finally screamed. More giggles. And then Benjamin's voice. I see your feet. No, I catapulted up the steps, screaming for him. I burst into his bedroom, but he wasn't there. Just his empty rocket bed, comforter rumpled, embroidered stars staring back at me. I ran back into the hallway, spinning around. Benjamin? But I didn't hear any footsteps, any giggling. The house was dead silent now, and I could hear a pin drop. I ran into the guest bedroom. It was empty. I ran over to the closet, threw it open, looked up and down. Nothing. Stumbling back out in the hallway, I crossed back towards my bedroom, the only bedroom left. I ran inside and flicked on the light. Empty. The pile of dirty laundry on the chair, untouched. The wardrobe, hanging open, my clothes inside. The pillows piled up on each other in a heap. Heart dropping, I ran around the other side of the bed. Also empty. I crouched to look under the bed. Empty. Mommy? Mommy? Relief flooded me as I heard that voice. The door to the bathroom opened a crack, and one blue eye peered out at me, wide with fear. I ran over and grabbed him, hugged him, and then I hoisted him up and started out of the bathroom. His eyes were still wide with fear. And they weren't focused on my face, but the spot just over my shoulder. I whipped around. It took me a moment to see it, but then I did. I stared at the wardrobe, frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. In the shadows poking out from underneath the hems of my dresses and coats were 2 feet. In moments like this, the brain doesn't really think. It's too slow. Instinct reigns. The smartest thing would have been to lock ourselves in the bathroom and climb out the window. But instead, I just ran for the hallway, as fast as I could. As I ran down the stairs, I heard the weighted footsteps, slow and methodical, resonating through the house. I could still hear them pounding into my brain as I ran to the neighbor and screamed for help. The police came. They searched the house. They didn't find anything, no signs of forced entry either. So they promised me they'd patrol my street for the next few days, but that was really all they could do. I decided to stay at a friend's house for a few weeks until I felt safe again. But every time I closed my eyes, I could see them. Those 2 feet that looked so off somehow, swollen as if waterlogged, a bit too grayish in tone to belong to any normal person. Toenails blackened and split, and I think back to that wardrobe, how I'd gotten it for free, how the owner told me his mother had just died, and he was just trying to get rid of all her stuff as quickly as possible. And I wondered, how exactly did she die? My mother's dementia is scaring me. My mother was a brilliant biologist, a tenured graduate who wrote 3 highly praised books on entomology. She'd recently retired, and I soon learned the painful reason why. Tears trickled down her lovely wrinkled face, and her smile wilted as she said the name of her curse the doctor had discovered: Alzheimer's. She started to lose small things at first: passwords and car keys. The disease then moved on to larger things: her cell phone, her medication, and then names. A few months ago, I moved into the house my father Jack had bought for her 30 years ago. It was my first time back in Providence since his funeral, and I knew she needed me there. The 3-story house was always too gothic for my taste, but my mother loved the wood stove, the large rooms, and the ample attic space. I found myself at the front porch, hauling 2 overstuffed suitcases, committed to be by her side as she descended into the thickening fog of dementia. She greeted me at the door with searching eyes and an odd smile, clearly at a loss for my name. I reminded her as I hugged her close, telling her it was okay, that we can work on the fuzzy details. I lifted my heavy bags into what was once the guest bedroom below my mother's room and unpacked my laptop, toiletries, and wardrobe. After getting settled, we'd shared a pleasant meal together from a nearby takeout joint. Afterward, I'd helped her into bed after doling out her Namzaric and Donepezil. I tried not to cry as she called me Jack and said how glad she was I was back. I was exhausted, so I retired to my bed early that night, but I woke abruptly at around 2 a.m. I jolted awake in the cold darkness from the thumping sound from the ceiling above me, the sound of barefoot sprinting through the rooms upstairs. I quickly dressed and rushed up the stairs to check on my mother, and I saw her silhouetted form framed by the open bathroom door. She looked to be smiling, but it wasn't the tender smile I'd known. It was a horrible, toothy grin that looked painfully wide. And as I called out, "Mom," and switched on the light, she stopped smiling immediately, and a look of confusion twisted her face back to normal. "Oh, Jack, it's late. Help me to bed," she requested sternly, seemingly oblivious to her actions. "It's Michael." "Sure thing, Mom," I explained, and extended an arm to assist her walk her back to her room. During the passing weeks, my mother unraveled until it became nearly impossible to carry a normal conversation. She would speak less frequently, and her sentences became more puzzling and bizarre. Mom began to mutter odd phrases as she stared blankly. Phrases such as, "Come out of there," and odder things like, "Come see what I'm weaving for you in the attic." One day, as I prepared her soup, she began laughing hysterically, with bulging eyes staring directly into mine as she snapped, "Why don't you crawl out of that tired old skin already?" as chills climbed my back. The days became more worrying, but the nights became far worse. I'd hear loud, growling words being muttered through the old air vent on the wall. She began banging the walls and grumbling about larvae and pupa, and occasionally screaming while frantically scratching the floors from above. Whenever I'd climb the stairs to check up on her, the racing feet sounded and I'd find her in bed, staring at me with wide, strange eyes. This week, I woke up to see her standing in the doorway to my room with that horrible wide grin, hyperventilating through those long teeth and wide, dark eyes that both seemed disproportionately large on her face. When I asked what she was doing and flicked on the light, her face fell slack, and I heard the clanging metal as a kitchen knife she'd been holding hit the floor. I began locking my door that night. In the past few days, she began rocking back and forth, whispering to herself about molting and shedding, about how late I am, that something's wrong. She stopped calling me Jack and began calling me Harvey, her father's name. She also began to chatter her teeth during the day, and at night, I've heard her enamel tapping together from the vent on my wall. It sounded far too close, like she'd been directly on the other side, staring into my room. Last night, I woke up to the sound of pounding on my bedroom door and frantic scratching. I nervously drew my curtain to reveal the barred window of my room, as the scraping of a blade on the door accompanied the strange shadows from the gap under it. An awful odor spilled in from the cracks, the mix of bile and decay. The clacking of teeth have magnified, now a loud snapping that only stopped once she spoke in an awful, buzzing voice that carried loudly from the base of the door. It's time to get in the cocoon I made you, dear.